So this is a giant piece of leather. It's an entire cow, and it just like, it hurts me to just make this first cut into it, just to cut off a piece to play with, but it really, it's like getting that first scratch on your car. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna do it. Oh, okay, no, it's fine. It's totally good. Totally fine. Okay. Got it. So we're gonna dye this piece. This really is just a beautiful piece of leather. It's really soft and supple and has really beautiful pebbling on it. And it's actually gonna turn into a blouse top jacket. It's gonna be cool. So a lot of people say that you can't dye leather that's already been tanned or dyed, which is what this is. They say all of these dyes are made for raw leather that doesn't have a finish or any dyes on it. That's totally wrong. Basically, you just take your leather or your shoe or your bag or whatever you want to dye and get some acetone. Make sure it's 100% pure acetone. You can use rubbing alcohol, but it's not as effective. This is a lot stronger, so it's going to take off any of the finish and some of the dye that's actually on there. And then you can start dyeing it. Super easy. I'm just going to take the acetone, and this is an old white t-shirt that I cut up, and pour some on it, and rub it on the leather. I just did half of this piece with the acetone, and as you can see, it actually took off some of the dye. It takes off a lot of the finish, so it's kind of hard to tell, but this side, it's not as shiny as this one. So that's taking off the dye, the finish, which is the top layer, and then the dye, which is right under that. So then it'll be ready to use our dye on it. Just a warning, acetone is like super toxic. Maybe not super toxic, but it smells very potent. So make sure you do it outside or in a super well ventilated area. I've got like 6 fans and like windows open down here. So, and you should probably also wear gloves, which I'm not, so bad me. Okay, so this is like a totally really weird angle, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. This one, this is a really weird angle. This one is EcoFlow leather dye, which I've never used before, but it's the blue that I want. The red, I never know how to pronounce this, but I use these a lot. The black one I've used before, but we're gonna go with oxblood today because that's the red that I want. So I think I'm just gonna kind of experiment on here and see what kind of colors I can get. I hate these foil things, they're stupid. Don't use your teeth to open this, that would be very bad. Oh, and now my finger's gonna be blue. That, friends, is why you wear gloves. Because that's not gonna come off. Okay, I'm gonna read the directions on this. When you dye leather, you're supposed to use these little guys. They're called daubers. I don't really know why you're supposed to use them, but that's what you're supposed to use. So, we're gonna try blue over in this corner. It's basically like a giant little sponge on the end, and it soaks. Wow, you can't even see what I'm doing. You just kind of stick it in and then let it sop up all the dye, and then you just kind of paint it on. This is such a weird angle. And while that blue dries, the first layer of that, I'm going to try red on a different oxblood. Look over here. Oxblood on a different section and see how dark I can get that. That is like bright, bright cherry red. That's not as dark as I want it. So we're gonna do some mixing of colors. This piece of leather is actually gonna be a test piece, so I'm actually just gonna like write all over it. Like this is one layer red, this is red and black, this is red and brown, this is blue and black. And then I can kind of decide colors from there. I'm gonna do a layer of medium brown, and then do a layer of red on top of that and see if I can get a deeper red. Being a mess all over this table. I have like bottles open everywhere. And these kind of dyes are actually alcohol based, so they dry a lot faster than the blue one, because the blue one is water based, so it's still taking a whole lot of time to dry, and this red one's actually almost dry. And so my red's drying, my blue's drying, my brown's drying. I'm gonna do a layer of red and then a layer of black and see if that'll turn out black or if it'll turn out dark red. I'm hoping it'll turn out dark red. I hope there's not like a hurricane or my house falls down right now, because I have like 4 bottles of leather dye open, and it would make a really big mess if my table just like fell over. So I used this black before. It's called USMC black. It's very, very, very black. I dyed it. I used it to re-dye a pair of leather boots that I have, and they turned out really awesome, but they are very, very, very black. So the blue is actually, you can't even see me. The blue is actually finally dry. But I really want like a navy, so I'm going to do another layer of blue and see if it'll get any darker. So dyeing this giant piece all red is going to be really difficult, because this is apparently 1 layer of red, while this is 2 layers of red. That's 1 layer and that's 2 layers, so it's going to be fun dyeing a giant piece all the same color. So anything with the black in it kind of just turns out black. When I did the red first and then the black sits on top, so it just looks black. The black and red is still drying, but it looks a really deep kind of bloody color, but it's really, really dark. It looks like a bloody scab, which is kind of gross, but kind of what I'm going for. The brown and red, which is this guy, is kind of a really deep red without being too dark, which doesn't make sense. But it's definitely like a brown in the red, and then when I did red and brown, it's more kind of a orangey, bronzy kind of color. So I'm probably either going to do the brown and red, or the black and red, or just a whole bunch of layers of red. But for the blue, it's kind of staying this, it's getting a little bit darker, but I want it to be a deep navy. So I actually took the alcohol dye, which is this one, in black, smeared it on, and before it dried I wiped up a whole bunch of it so the black wouldn't be as dark, and I'm going to try the blue on top of that and see if that'll give me a darker color. Much better angle. Okay, so these are pretty much dry. This little guy right here is 2 layers of blue, not the color that I want, but this guy is the black, and then I wiped off the black before it fully dried, and then I did a layer of blue on top. So you can see it's shiny, that means it's still kind of wet, but it's got like that navy kind of vibe to it. This one's actually 3 layers of red, but it doesn't look like it. This is 1 layer of red. Oh, that's 1 and that's 3. I have no idea. This is red and black, and you can see it just looks black. That one is black and red, and it just looks, well, black. That one is a layer of brown and then a layer of red, which is what I think I might go with. That one's red and then brown, but it has that kind of greenish metallic to it. I haven't put a finish on any of them, which is this. It's like a satin sheen finish, so it'll give it kind of that shiny but not metallic look. I might try that on like half of each of these and see what happens. I might do another layer on the brown and red to see if it'll go more red. Okay, so I'm doing this, oh, excuse my hair. I'm doing this painting the leather on one side, but I know a lot of leather companies they actually drum dye their leather, so it's in a giant commercial like dryer, and they toss the big old giant versions of this into the spinning thing, and the leather goes in there and it actually dyes from both sides. But like this is totally wet, but like that's the side I'm putting colors all over, and that's the other side. So it's only dyeing one side of the leather as opposed to the drum dye, which penetrates the leather from both sides. So we're gonna do a mini version of that. I'm gonna cut a little piece of leather, put it in this plastic bag, and dump a whole bunch of dye in it. and let it sit and then see what happens. So I cut a little square of leather hanging out in this bag, and we're gonna try red because that's the color I actually want. Don't spill. Oh, that looks just delicious and normal. I'm just gonna let that sit. That's why you wear gloves. See, because I just wiped that off and it's not gonna come off. It's meant to dye leather. Leather is skin. Okay. I'm just gonna let that hang out in there probably overnight, maybe for a day or two, and then come back to it. So we are back down in the basement, and so that little square of leather that I tried to dye in the little plastic bag kind of worked, but if you noticed, it did not put acetone on it. So I didn't take the finish and the dye off of the top layer, meaning that it didn't dye. That's what color it is. It's kind of like a really weird, like, raw steak color, which is a gross kind of comparison. I mean, it's a lot, well, those are all blue. I mean, it is kind of red. It's a lot more like pink. It's like a, I don't know, it looks like a raw steak color. But since it was soaking in it, the other side actually dyed very beautifully. Like, that's the color that I want. So this just goes to show you how important it is to strip off the dye off the other side, or else nothing happens.